Welcome back. Today we're going to be looking at parsing arguments in Python. So to demonstrate that we'll start by looking at using input to get arguments. So I've got this code which I've already written, and it takes in an input which says whether you want to add or multiply numbers, and then it gets some numbers that are separated by a space, and it strips them so it gets rid of spaces at the end, and then it splits it, and that means that it turns it into a list. Notice that they're still going to be strings. So say if the operation is m, then we start with a total of 1, and then we just keep multiplying the total until we're done. And if there's an error, then it generates an error. Otherwise, if it's an a, then the total is 0 and it keeps adding numbers. And then if it's not an m or an a, then it will raise this invalid operation error. And then at the end it will print the total and the total, or that there's an error and then the error. So we'll run this, and if we start adding numbers, and we add the numbers, maybe 1, 2, 3 and 4, we can see the total is 10. Run it again, maybe this time we'll multiply numbers. I'll multiply the same numbers, and you can see it's 24. And maybe one more time we'll type in a letter that's not an A or an M. Let's type in a G, and we'll type in some numbers that aren't numbers. So and you see it says invalid operation. And maybe we could change this slightly so that instead of saying A or M, and if there's something else, then maybe we have a default. So if you type in something that's not an A or an M, it will multiply, so we could just change this to an else. Or we could have floats instead of integers. So there are many ways we could change this. The only issue is if we wanted to run it multiple times, then we'd have to type in all the numbers again and add everything up again. So now we're going to change the code using something called sys, and we're going to use sys.argv. So to start, let's import sys. You need to import it. You don't need to install it with pip because it's a built-in Python module. And what we'll do is we'll print sys.argv so that you can see what it is, and then we'll just exit 0, so none of the code below will run. And to illustrate what it is, I need to type in some stuff. So I'll type in A, 1, 2, 3, 4. And this is our sys.argv. So you can see the first thing is the file name, and then we've got everything else separated by a space. And it splits based on white space. So if I put 2 spaces in, then you can see that it hasn't done anything separate. And this is quite similar to what we tried to put in here. So maybe what we want to do is we want to set the operation to the first thing in sys.argv. So instead we'll say operation is equal to sys.argv, and we want to say 1 rather than 0 because the 0 thing is the file name. And then the numbers, we can say that this is sys.argv, and then we want everything from the second index onwards, so we just do 2 colon. And now we can see that it's printed our total is 10, and it's still printing this, so I'll just comment it out. And we could change it so that it says M, and again it's worked. So this is a nice alternative. But the issue is if we sent this program to someone and said, here's a program, they wouldn't know how to use it. So maybe we could add in a new line here. It says if help in sys.argv print, so we could put some help message. So we'll just say some help message. We're not going to fill it in. And then we can just exit 0. So now if we do it, and we just type in help, it will say that we've spelt argv wrong, and it displays some help message. But there's an even better way of doing that, and that's using arcpass.argumentParser. So to illustrate arcpass, we'll start by typing python --help, and you see there are lots of stuff here telling us what we can do. So it says python, and then option, and then commands, and then arguments. So we'll start by doing this, which says print the version number and exit. So we can do python -v, or we can do python -- version, and we can do both. And you can see it's given us some more details about it. We could also do python with a lowercase v, and this is going to make it verbose, and you can see that loads of stuff has just happened. We print hello world, and then exit. We can see that it's doing all these things underneath, which if we just do the usual python and then print hello world and then exit, it doesn't display any of these messages. So the -v is verbose. And so we can use these arguments to customize our program. So instead of importing sys, we want to import from arcpass the argument parser. And there are a few other things you can import, but we won't look at those. And the first thing we want is a parser. And a parser is an argument parser. And for now, we'll just leave it as that. And delete this. And currently nothing's going to work. So the first thing we'll do is add a description, and our description is going to be add or multiply numbers. We'll say parser.parse args, and these will be our arguments. You can call this config or anything, but arguments is generally a good way to go. And then we can run our program and put in the help flag, and you can see already it says add or multiply numbers, and it tells you how to use it. And obviously there's nothing there yet, so if we start by adding some arguments, the first argument we're going to add is going to be numbers, and these are required, so you always have to put in the numbers. And we'll give it a metavar equal to n, and that means that the short form is equal to n. And you can see here the positional arguments n, and it's gone there. And if we don't put this in, you can see it just calls it numbers, but it's nicer calling it n. We also need to set the type as an int, because we want that, and the number of arguments is plus, so this means you need one or more. So yeah, if we run it again, it says n because you need multiple numbers. And we want to add a help message that says integers to add or multiply. And there's the help message. And now for the operation, and because we've got two operations and you can only choose one, then we want to actually add a mutually exclusive group, and required equals true. So that means that you have to pick one of these two, and we add the argument to the first one, and we'll say add, and it can also be -a, and this time the action is store true, so that means it will store it if it's true, and the help is add the numbers. And we can see this time you can add the add or -a, add the numbers, and then we can add a multiply, and this will multiply the numbers. It's called multiply dash m, and see now it will multiply the numbers. And so what we'll do here is, instead of printing sys.argv, we'll exit so that we can run the code and then see what happens. So we'll run it, but this time instead of help, we'll put 1, 2, 3, 4, and you can see it says add or multiply is required. So we'll do it again. This time we'll add them, and you can see what we've got is a namespace where add is true, multiply is false, and numbers is 1, 2, 3, 4. So what we'll do is we'll say if the arguments dot multiply, and because it's a boolean we don't need this, and then here, as they're mutually exclusive, we can just put else. And again, it's possible we get a runtime error, but it's very unlikely. And you see our total is 10, and this time we can just put dash m, and our total is 24. So you can see that this new program is working really well. And you can see another advantage of using arcpass is if we replace the 2 maybe with an e, you can see that it says that we've got an argument n, an invalid int value e. So it's really nice that it detects errors for us as well, and we could actually therefore get rid of all this try and accept stuff. And so if we run the proper version again, you can see that now everything has worked, and that's a very nice way of passing arguments. You see it in a lot of programs, and it's a customizable way that you can rerun programs, send them to people who know what they're doing, and you can specify what goes on without having to worry about there being lots of errors or lots of stuff to check, because it does it for you. So hopefully you've enjoyed this video. You can see that arguments are a really useful thing to do. So see you again, same time next week.